Hi, I'm going to talk about the realities of moving to Kenya as an American. I thought I was prepared. I really thought. But I'm Shannon, and I have 5 big things that are super important if you're going to move to Kenya. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one, water. The reality of having to be mindful about your drinking water is really important. So I know all of us, if you traveled outside the country as an American, you probably know, don't drink the tap water because we don't have the same immunity and just microbiome to deal with drinking tap water from a country that we're not from. Now, when you're living here long term, you need to think about that all the time because it is going to be important and it's going to be important to your health. So we buy refillable 5-gallon jugs and we have a really big dispenser in the kitchen. That way I always have drinkable water that I can refill my thermos with. I also use it for making tea, making coffee, making ice cubes is really important. You want to use that same drinking water to make your ice cubes. And you want to even use it for things that are going to be ingested even passively. So for weeks I was struggling with tummy troubles and couldn't figure out why. And it turns out it was because I was brushing my teeth with the tap water. Now, once I stopped doing that, everything was fine. But it's the little things like that that get you. So the drinkable water and having access to it all the time in the house, very, very important. When we came here, I believe the first time I came to Kenya in 2024, we would buy just liter bottles. And when they would run out, I would realize oh my gosh, I can't just go to the tap and drink the water. So how I miss the taps. But this is a very solvable problem. Now, the art of bargaining. As an American, I was not used to haggling or bargaining for everything from the rent to the vegetables. But here it is very normal. It's very much a part of the culture. And how good you are at bargaining is honestly like a mark of pride. So I got here and realized this is something I need to learn and adapt to. So if I have the mind space, for instance, I love my plants. If I go into an open air market, I'm going to get a much better plant. If you go into an open air market, you're going to get much better produce and you're going to get a much better price. However, that requires that you do a bit of bargaining, that you do a bit of haggling, that you have the bandwidth to do that. Now, I will say, if you don't want to do that, you always can go to a supermarket. The one nearest to me is a Carrefour. They're all over the place. It will be just like what we're used to in America. You go into a supermarket, you pay the normal price, and you go about your day. So I will balance and pick my battles. If I feel like I have the mind space and it's more important to me to save some money, I will make the effort and go into a market or have a friend go with me to go and do some shopping in an open air place. If I just need milk, eggs, bread, and I don't really want to make the extra effort and I'm just going to get it delivered, go ahead and do that too. You have the choice. As an aside, a good thing a friend that's an expat taught us about bargaining, because when I first got here, I told him I feel like I'm having a really hard time adapting to this part of the culture. And he made a good point of saying, think of it as it's not yes or no. It's a matter of let's talk. It's just the art of the dance. And the better you get at it, the more comfortable you'll feel about it. So yes, I will admit that when someone hears your American accent and that 100 shillings souvenir suddenly became 1,000 shillings. But have the presence of mind to know that this is not someone trying to scam you. It is just part of the dance. The cost of living. This was the biggest reason my husband and I decided to move to Kenya, because living in Philadelphia, even with a double income household, it was still really, really expensive. So we came here knowing that we would be able to drastically reduce our monthly expenses. And I wanted to give you some reference points of just normal household budget things so that if you're considering moving to Nairobi or Kenya or any African country, maybe this will give you a little bit of perspective on what that difference actually is. So rent. Here in Nairobi, for reference, for maybe a 1-bedroom, like a modern 1-bedroom apartment in a high rise, you can expect to pay 40,000 to 70,000 shillings. Now again, this is all negotiable, but this would be probably in a neighborhood like Kilimani or Westlands. That's going to be a very expat-friendly neighborhood. And this is going to be for a very move-in, turnkey-ready apartment. And there are plenty of them. There's lots of developments going up. Nairobi is booming with housing and these high-rise developments. Now, the next thing, if we're talking about water, drinkable water. So that 5-gallon jug that we use in our home, that's about 500 shillings to refill it. Very important that you actually take the old bottle back, or even there's services that will come to your house, pick up the empty jug, and then take the empty jug and give you one full of new drinking water. That's only about 500 shillings per jug. If you go into a supermarket and just keep rebuying the jugs, that's going to be more like 1,000 shillings, and so you're paying double, when really you could save yourself the time and save yourself the money and make sure you're swapping those out. That's going to save you some money. Now, the other utilities, so gas, electric, and water for your tap water. So the water that you're using, to wash dishes, showering, washing up, and things like that, that for us is bundled in with our electric bill. And for us, we live in a townhome, so we're paying about 10,000 shillings a month for both of those utilities. However, I will say we keep things plugged in all the time. There are outlets, our fridge, the pump that pumps the water throughout the house. I tend to leave fans running. So the more you leave these things on, obviously, the more power you're going to use. But I do know for reference, for a 1-bedroom apartment, you probably could expect to pay 3,000, 8,000 shillings. But again, this is just very dependent on how much power and water you're using. Gas is super easy. It comes in a canister. The canister is about 3,000 shillings, a little bit less. We use about 1 canister for maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks, and we tend to cook every day. So for me, that's a very cost-effective for cooking gas. Now, the big one, groceries. There are certain staples that I think you can always have the option of going to a grocery store or going to an open air market and getting, but this is where I feel like I see the most cost savings. For example, a pineapple here, if you go into a Carrefour, just a supermarket, is about 150 Kenya shillings. I find that produce like green leafy vegetables, tomatoes, any kind of fruits, veg, things like that is much, much cheaper if you go into an open air market. But even if you do go to a supermarket, the cost is still very reasonable. Now for, I believe, let's say a loaf of bread, I know offhand that is at Carrefour, 127 shillings. If you're going to buy things like a few tomatoes, you can spend 100 shillings and get enough tomatoes to cover a few meals. Same thing for onions. If you are someone that likes spicy peppers, habaneros, actually, I'll look and see. Maybe not. Maybe I won't give the price because I can't think of that right now offhand. But the next thing I know for reference is meat. So every month we buy from a butcher goat, beef, and chicken. And that's usually $8,000 to $9,000 depending on the cuts and things that we get. And that's a huge savings compared to when we lived in Philly. We would go to a butcher in New Jersey, in Vineland, and we easily were spending $200 to $250 for that same month's worth of proteins. Here, that 8,000 or 9,000 shillings is buying about 10 kilograms or over 20 pounds of different meats, and that lasts us all month, and so that's a huge savings. Breathless in Nairobi. My husband warned me that Nairobi, the altitude is quite high comparing it to Philadelphia, and I will feel the difference. For comparison, he said, people prepare to go to Denver, Colorado because it's known as the Mile High City. I kind of brushed it off thinking, I've traveled before, it'll be fine. For reference, Philadelphia is about 39 feet above sea level. Nairobi is closer to 6,000 feet above sea level. It is well past the altitude of the Mile High City. And I was not prepared. So we first came here and we were staying in a neighborhood called Karen. Karen is even higher altitude than that nearly 6,000 feet of Nairobi. So I would wake up a lot of mornings and I genuinely felt a bit just tired and exhausted just from doing basic things like getting up, taking our dog packs out, and making some coffee. And I'd be like, I need to sit down. It is the altitude. When you come from your baseline being basically sea level and you come to nearly 6,000 feet above that, your body has to acclimate to this difference. So first of all, it's having to work a lot harder just to get the oxygen that it needs to function properly. With having to work harder, your body is burning more calories to do this, just making sure your blood is getting oxygenated. Because it's working harder, it's burning more calories to do very base level things. You also might experience altitude anorexia. So since your body's working hard and it's changing and adapting to this environment, it doesn't really want to exert more energy on digesting more food. All of this combined does tend to lead to weight loss. So while the diet, yes, for sure, is more fibrous, and I feel like it is a lot more nutritionally dense, you also have your body burning more calories. You're eating less, probably unconsciously. So a lot of people do come and you lose a little bit of weight. I know myself personally, I definitely lost a good 10, 12 pounds passively just from the change in ecosystem along with the diet. Tying into the change in our ecosystem, Nairobi, because of the high altitude, you don't really have to worry about mosquitoes and having a net over your bed when you sleep, taking malaria tablets, because mosquitoes don't thrive in this high altitude. However, if you're going to be going out into somewhere that has standing water with a lot of lakes, if you're going out to the coast, it might be good to go visit a travel doctor or just talk with your primary care doctor, tell them that you're visiting and see if they might recommend malaria tablets, if there's any immunizations in particular that you might need, especially if you're going to be moving here long term. Infrastructure. I know roads and sewers and things aren't, that sexy, but it's important because there is going to be a difference. So moving here, I realized it's very accessible to drive anywhere that you need to go. And my husband honestly even finds it more accessible because it's a lot more cost effective and easy to find drivers to take him where he needs to go. With that being in mind, you are gonna get a bit of African massage because the consistency of the roads is variable. Now, that doesn't mean you won't be able to get where you need to go, and the highways are exceptional, very smooth and nice, and it also avoids the traffic if you're willing to pay the toll for the highway. During the rainy season, however, which we are in right now, the rainy season can have very heavy rains, and the infrastructure sometimes has a hard time supporting the drainage needed to accommodate this sudden, downpours that may happen. The flooding can cause roads to be blocked. The flooding can cause, mudslides and things. It can also cause power to go out more. So being aware and prepared for the season that you're in when you're in the Sahara, it's going to be important because it maybe will change the paths you have to take. It may change the plans that you have. I know we came here a couple years ago. We wanted to have dinner at one of our really good friends' houses. We were on the way there and it's rainy season. It took us 3 hours to get across Nairobi. And then when we did get there, the power was out. But you know what? We had dinner by candlelight. We had wonderful conversation. And sometimes the power being out here is honestly a nice thing. It lets you lock in and you just get to talk and converse and connect again in a way that you usually wouldn't if we're all just staring at our phones. Another thing I've noticed as far as infrastructure, I think in America we pride ourselves on our law and order, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Nonetheless, I have noticed that if there's a little fender bender on the road, sometimes if there's something in the road of a community that needs to be fixed, people will just take care of it themselves. They'll get together and organize and be like, oh, we need these stones and these things and we'll fix the road. I had a little fender bender. Well, here, let me help push this car out of the way and we'll get everything sorted out before the authorities even arise. And I really admire that because it shows not only the resilience of a community, but also the initiative, the being reliant on yourself. You're not waiting for someone to come and fix everything for you. Sometimes you just gotta do it yourself. Now, the biggest hurdle for me moving here, even with my husband being Kenyan, is realizing I'm the immigrant. Americans, I realized I have lived in a bit of a bubble. Even with traveling as much as I have through my 20s and 30s, we tend to, when we hear the word immigrant as an American, we think of the rest of the world. And when we go out and travel in the world, we do expect to be accommodated. So now that I am the person that is living in a different country, and I am the person that doesn't speak the native language, and I have to acclimate to the culture, the change in the ecosystem, the fact that there aren't seasons here, it's always tropical, and that I do miss the snow. I do miss a lot of the comforts of home that you don't realize are gone until they're really gone. And also having the growth and emotional intelligence, even just having that growth from bargaining, has helped me learn this is something that any immigrant that has come to America has silently suffered with. They come here looking for prosperity, and a lot of times the cost of that prosperity is the sacrifice of what you know is home. And I have so much more understanding for what that feels like now. Now, that is not to say any of this is all a wonderful idea. for me personally, apart from my husband, I wanted a better quality of life. I wanted to have time be my own so that I could spend time with my family and so that I could use my time in a way that I wanted to, and also that I could share our life and feel comfortable to do so. So moving here has not only helped me grow, it has really been like a masterclass in what adaptability means. It has allowed me to expand myself and grow in ways that I otherwise would not have been able to if it had not forced me to be uncomfortable in this way. I just want to get a little bit better every day. And I think that if I'm just getting a little bit better every day, I'm achieving a pretty good goal. So I would love to hear other people's expat stories. If you have moved out of the country because you're a missionary, because of marriage, or just because you wanted a better quality of life, whatever your reason may be. Or if you have immigrated to America. And I know personally, for instance, my husband's family moved to America when they were 10. And while it wasn't a sunny story, it is still a story worth hearing, and they're stories I like to hear. So if you'd like to, please share in the comments. I'd love to hear about your immigration stories as well, and I will see you next time. Bye. Let's do it when you want to get to it. Relax, don't do it when you want to come.